Bring it in. I'm Michael Hotard, bringing you another edition of the No Huddle for Bayou Report. If you watch the first segment of the No Huddle, the way this works is I start this off with a trivia question, followed by a series of topics that I'll run through rather quickly, and at the end of the video, you'll get the answer to that trivia question. Let's go ahead and start there. My trivia question for today is, who is the only player in NBA history to have a winning record against not only Michael Jordan, but also Kobe Bryant and LeBron James? That answer coming later. Roger Goodell recently came out and backtracked on the NFL stance a little bit regarding protests against racial inequality. Now, what happened when Colin Kaepernick first started the protests back in 2016, the NFL took a dive in ratings. Now, it's fairly typical to see a decline in ratings during election years, which is when these protests first started. But then for it to keep trickling and sliding even further after setting historic highs in Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Thursday Night Football in 2015, it was sort of unprecedented. The NFL eventually stepped in and outlawed it, and now we're seeing that backtrack, and we will likely see more protests in the 2020 season for the NFL. The question remains, what is going to happen? Because it seems that the narrative has shifted more toward the side in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. You're seeing more players speak out, and you're seeing more people speak out in support of that movement. So will the ratings continue to slide once those protests start again? We'll find out soon enough. One of the things I'm most excited for is the NBA to resume their season. Now, of course, they've condensed it, they've shortened it, and they're only allowing a certain number of teams to compete for those final playoff spots. So it may come later, but we're still gonna get playoff basketball. But one of the big stories coming out of the resume of the NBA is Kyrie Irving, who came out and basically condemned the NBA for restarting their season with everything happening right now in the US. But one of the big problems is that Kendrick Perkins came out and said that Kyrie Irving had a much different stance just 10 days earlier. But given that someone was so quick to call him out, and he used to believe the earth was flat, I'll go ahead and take my chances and say it's probably not sincere, and he's just disappointed that his team won't be in the fight for the postseason. We're going to take a round tripper here and finish this off with some baseball. I watched the 30 for 30 regarding the 98 home run race between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Now, growing up, I played baseball. It was a sport that I held very close to me. It was near and dear to my heart. And over time, I lost that love for baseball, and it's almost unwatchable today. So it was cool to see that childhood sort of re-spark for me, give that nostalgia, and show a period of baseball when it truly was one of the greatest times in modern sports. That was a time where baseball did a great job marketing their stars. You knew the names like King Griffey Jr., Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, because those guys were plastered all over the forefront of the sport. And I've written columns about this more recently, but one of the things that just drives me nuts about baseball today is it has the star power, and I'd argue unlike any other league. I'd argue that baseball has more star power than even a product like the NBA. You have an enigmatic superstar in Bryce Harper. You have the stereotypical vanilla baseball player who's historically great in Mike Trout. You have a scrappy stud with one of the most beloved organizations, that is the Chicago Cubs, in Javi Baez. And then you also have two absolute bomb hitters on the New York Yankees, that is Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. So you have a new age of Bronx Bombers. But baseball falls so short at marketing those guys and making them known to the general public. And it's one of the many reasons why baseball falls short. Going back to the trivia question that I asked earlier in this segment, the answer is none other than Mr. Big Shot, Chauncey Billups. That's right. No one is ever going to say that Chauncey Billups is a better player than either of those three. Not even close. But he's been on teams that found ways to beat those guys. So again, it's just one of those weird happenings that we see all the time in sports. Thank you for watching this video. For Bayou Report, I'm Michael Hotard, and as always, honor the huddle.